I want to start at the exact moment. Not the part where I land in Bogota, not the part where I check into the hotel, not the part where I fall in love with the city the way everyone does. I want to start at the exact moment where everything that came after became possible. I am standing on a street in Zona T at 11:40 at night. Zona T is one of the most popular nightlife districts in Bogota. It is full of restaurants and bars and well-dressed people and noise and light and a particular energy of a city that never fully sleeps. It felt completely safe. It looked completely safe. That is important. I need you to hold on to that. I opened my phone to order a taxi through an app. The app I had been told to use. The one every expat forum and travel blog and safety advisory says to use without exception. My battery is at 4%. I look at the street. There are yellow taxis everywhere. Moving slowly through the traffic, available, normal, exactly what taxis are supposed to look like. I think, it is 3 blocks to the hotel. Maybe 4. It will take 2 minutes. What could happen in 2 minutes? I put my phone in my pocket and I raise my hand. A yellow taxi pulls over. I get in. That is the moment. That one, right there. Not the hand on the door handle. Not even the step up onto the curb. The moment I decided that 4% battery was a good enough reason to break the one rule every single person who knows Colombia had told me never to break. Never hail a taxi from the street. That is all it was. One decision. One small, tired, completely understandable shortcut. And for that decision, I paid with 3 hours of my life I will never fully recover from. Who I was before Bogota, I was 31 years old when I first came to Colombia. Younger than most of the men whose stories end up on channels like this one. Not a divorced middle-aged man chasing something he had lost. Just a young guy who had read enough travel content to become convinced that Colombia was the most exciting place on earth to spend 3 weeks in January. I was not wrong about that. Colombia is extraordinary. Bogota is a city of 8 million people stacked on a plateau more than 2,600 meters above sea level, cold in the mornings and warm in the afternoons and alive in the evenings in a way that most cities never manage. The food is incredible. The people, by and large, are warm and funny and proud of a place that has worked very hard to become something different from what the world still half expects it to be. I had been there for 12 days when it happened. 12 good days. I had eaten well and slept well and walked around Candelaria and taken the cable car in Medellin and had the kind of trip that makes you think seriously about leaving your job and your apartment and your country behind and starting something new. I had been careful. I had used the app for every taxi. I had not wandered anywhere I should not have wandered. I had done everything right. And then my battery hit 4%. The first 3 minutes the driver did not speak English. That was fine. My Spanish was functional enough to say the name of my hotel and the neighborhood and thank you and good night. He nodded and pulled into traffic. For the first 90 seconds, nothing was wrong. He drove. I looked out the window. The lights of Zona T slid past. A group of people laughing outside a bar. A food cart under a yellow light. Normal city things, the kind you stop seeing after a few days because they become background. Then I noticed he had turned in the wrong direction. I said the name of the hotel again. He did not respond. He was looking at his mirrors. Then the back door on my left opened and a man got in. I did not understand what was happening for about 2 full seconds. My brain ran through every explanation except the correct one. Someone who needed a ride. A friend of the driver. A mistake. Some custom I did not know about. Then the man put a knife against my ribs and said something in Spanish I did not need translated. The door on my right opened. A second man got in. The first man took my phone. The second man took my wallet. The driver kept driving, unhurried, like he was taking me exactly where I needed to go. The paseo Millonario had begun. The millionaire's ride, they call it that because of what it takes from you. Not just the money you are carrying. Not just your phone and your wallet and your watch. Everything. They had my phone. They had my wallet with my cards. They knew, or they assumed, that somewhere in those cards was access to accounts that an American tourist would have. Checking accounts. Savings accounts. Whatever was sitting there, accessible, waiting. The first ATM was 10 minutes from Zona T. One of the men walked me to the machine while the other stayed in the car. The knife was not visible, but I knew it was there. He told me, In clear enough English, how much to withdraw? He watched my hands on the keyboard. He watched the bills come out. He took them. We got back in the car and drove. The second ATM was across the city. I do not know exactly where. I had no phone, no map, and no ability to orient myself in a city I had only known for 12 days. The streets looked the same to me at midnight. Dark buildings and streetlights and the occasional sound of something I could not identify. At the second ATM I withdrew from a different card. At the third ATM I told them the account was empty because it was empty. One of them took out his phone and showed me a photo. It was a photo of my hotel room. Not from outside. From inside. Someone had been in my room. Someone had been through my things and photographed what they found and sent it to these men in the taxi. I withdrew from the account I had told them was empty. Then we drove for a long time and I did not know if we were driving to a fourth ATM or somewhere else, and that uncertainty was the worst part. The money was almost secondary by then. What I was thinking about, sitting in the back of that yellow taxi between two men with knives while a third drove through the dark streets of a city I did not know, was not the money. I was thinking about whether they were going to let me out of the car. They pulled over on a street I did not recognize. One of them opened the door and told me to get out. He said something else I did not catch. The car pulled away before I had fully processed that I was standing on a pavement and the car was gone and I was alone. I stood there for a moment. Then I sat down on the curb. I sat on the curb of an unknown street in Bogota with no phone, no wallet, no cards, no ID, no money, and no idea what neighborhood I was in. And I was grateful to be sitting on that curb. That is what 3 hours in a paseo Millonario does to your sense of what a good outcome looks like. The numbers: a couple was express kidnapped in Bogota's Zona T in April 2023. They flagged down a street taxi. 2 men with knives entered the car. The criminals drove them across the city and forced online bank transfers and ATM withdrawals totaling 30 million pesos. $7,200. Gone in one taxi ride. A DEA agent was murdered in Bogota during an express kidnapping. Not robbed. Murdered. Because these things do not always end with someone sitting on a curb feeling grateful. In Cartagena in 2024, a young Mexican tourist arrived in the historic center on a Saturday afternoon. He had been in the city for 5 hours. He was approached by 6 armed men and walked to an ATM at gunpoint. He withdrew 4 million pesos. They also took his chain from around his neck. He had been in Colombia for 5 hours. The Paseo Millonario was named the leading cause of financial loss affecting U.S. citizens in Colombia in the 2025 State Department Country Advisory. Not scopolamine. Not dating app robberies. Not petty theft. Fake taxis. The oldest trick in the book. The most obvious trap. The one that every travel blog and safety forum warns you about clearly and repeatedly and without ambiguity. And it is still the #1 way Colombia takes money from Americans. Because the warnings do not help you when your battery is at 4% and there is a taxi right there and you are tired and the hotel is only 3 blocks away. How the system works: what happened to me was not random. I want to be clear about this because I think most people imagine it as a crime of opportunity. A taxi driver who happened to be criminal. A moment of bad luck. It is not that. The Paseo Millonario is an organized system with defined roles. The driver is part of it. The men who enter the car are part of it. The person who was in my hotel room and photographed my belongings was part of it. There is coordination. There are networks. Criminal organizations in Bogota and Medellin and Cartagena have been running this operation for years, refining it, adapting it when ride-share apps made street taxis less common by identifying the moments when tourists still flag down street taxis, late at night, low battery, tired, 3 blocks from the hotel. They are very patient. They are very good at identifying the moment the rule breaks down. The rule always breaks down eventually. This is also why the crime is dramatically underreported. Colombian authorities estimate that a significant proportion of express kidnapping victims do not report what happened to them. Because they are embarrassed. Because they blame themselves. Because they broke the one rule everyone told them not to break and they do not want to sit in front of a police officer and explain that. I almost did not report it. I almost just booked an earlier flight home and never told anyone. What stopped me was sitting on that curb and thinking about the next person. The next tired tourist with 4% battery and a hotel 3 blocks away and a yellow taxi right there. The policeman found me on that street about 20 minutes after the taxi left. He spoke some English. He could see what had happened from the state I was in. He helped me find a police station. The officers were professional. They took my statement. They asked good questions. They filled out forms. They were also not surprised. Not even slightly surprised. They had the form ready. The section for paseo Millonario already printed on it with checkboxes for the number of perpetrators and the number of ATM stops and the approximate total taken. This is a form they use regularly. One of the officers told me, through the translator the station found after an hour of waiting, that street taxi kidnappings in Bogota increased significantly in December when Colombians receive their annual Christmas bonuses and criminal networks scale up their operations to match the increased cash flow in the city. They scale up their operations. Like a business responding to seasonal demand. I flew home 4 days early. I sat in the airport for 6 hours waiting for a flight with a temporary document the US Embassy processed for me and a credit card that a friend had wired enough money onto to cover the flight. I did not cry until I was on the plane. And then I cried in the way you cry when something frightening has passed and you are safe and the adrenaline finally leaves your body all at once. The woman in the seat next to me pretended not to notice. I was grateful for that too. What I know now, I've been home for 8 months. I tell this story to every single person I know who mentions they are going to Colombia. Not to frighten them. Not to tell them not to go. Colombia is worth going to. It is one of the most alive places I have ever been, and I mean that without irony even after everything. But I tell them the rule. One rule. The only rule that matters. Never flag a taxi from the street. Not at 11 p.m. Not at 3 blocks from the hotel. Not at 4% battery. Not ever. Not once. Not for any reason. Use Uber. Use InDriver. Use Cabify. Use any of the half-dozen apps that connect you to verified drivers with registered plates and GPS-tracked routes and accountability that a yellow taxi flag from a curb in Zona T does not have and never will have. If your phone is at 4%, go back inside and charge it. If there is no outlet, ask someone to call a cab for you. If you cannot do that, sit down and wait. Because the alternative is getting into a car that is waiting for you to make exactly that decision. The paseo Millonario does not happen to people who are reckless or drunk or obviously vulnerable. It happens to people who are tired and reasonable and making a normal human calculation about a 3-block ride. It happened to a DEA agent. It happened to me. It will happen to the next person who gets in that car. Do not be the next person who gets in that car. If this story made you think twice about that taxi, share it with someone who is traveling to Colombia. The travel blogs will show you the food and the flowers and the mountains and the eternal spring. This channel will show you the rest of the story. Subscribe to The Broken Nomad. New true story every week. Because the most important travel advice is the kind nobody puts in the brochure.